This is part 2 of our video on section 6. We want to name two triangles that are congruent by angle side angle. So we're looking for congruent marks in certain spots. Remember, angle side angle means two pairs of congruent angles, one pair of congruent sides, and the congruent sides must be in between the congruent angles. So I notice that I have two pairs of congruent angles here. Are these sides that are in between congruent? And they're not. Be careful. That's 2 marks, that's 1 mark. This one doesn't have two pairs of congruent angles. This one does. Here's a pair of congruent angles, here's a second pair. Are the sides in between congruent? They are. So the two triangles that are congruent in this example would be the blue one and the red one. Just name them. We'll name that triangle KIP. And that's going to be congruent to this triangle up here. That would be triangle DOG. Just watch the order. K goes with D. We need to prove that these two triangles are congruent. And notice how they gave us some given information in the proof already. I kind of like how that's done. That way I don't have to write all this out. You probably like it too. So make sure you read what's given. They're telling you that angle B and angle E are right angles. So if you wanted to, you could mark them as right angles. That's given. Now, what does that mean if they're right angles? Well, you could say that that means that these are right triangles. Or you could say that it means that these angles are congruent. Either one is not wrong, but one of them is the best approach for showing that these triangles are congruent. So you kind of need to know where you're going at this point. Here's some other information that's given. So I'm not going to write my step 2 in yet because I don't know what I want to say about these angles. Segment AB, that's congruent to segment AE. So now we got a pair of congruent sides. And we know we got congruent angles here. We have right triangles to say that too. The other thing that's not here, and I guess you could put this in step 2 as well. That doesn't matter. These angles right here are definitely congruent. These are vertical angles. So we're going to name those using 3 letters to show that those are congruent. Now, if you look at your picture, you can see that these triangles are going to be congruent by angle side angle, not HL. So we're going to use angle side angle. So the fact that these are right angles, the second thing we should say is angle B is congruent to angle E. That's the right angles congruence theorem. That's theorem 2.3 if you don't remember. Okay, so we have congruent angles. We have congruent sides. We need to talk about these congruent angles in our proof because we didn't do that yet. These angles are congruent because they're vertical. So we're using the vertical angle theorem. Just be careful when you name them. Again, you got to use 3 letters. So I'll call this angle BAC. It's congruent to angle EAD. You could use the picture or you could use the statement. That's probably a little bit safer. We talked about everything that we have marked in our proof. So these two triangles are congruent triangles. And they're congruent by angle side angle.